So, we are here talking about Seattle Kraken forward Shane Wright, and new reports that have come out from Josh Yohei that the Pittsburgh Penguins are interested in this guy. Now, there's a bigger conversation to have about the Pittsburgh Penguins, about Shane Wright, about the Seattle Kraken, and I'm even going to throw in the Vancouver Canucks in there. Because when I see that the Kraken and the Penguins are in talks, in cahoots, whatever, and that Shane Wright's name is involved, my brain automatically jumps over to the Vancouver Canucks angle and asks whether or not there is some sort of a bidding war, 3-team trade that's possible here. Now, let's dive into the latest from Josh Yohei, as posted by Josh Wegman on thescore.com. Wegman did a piece where he pretty much transcribed what the Josh Yohei article said on The Athletic. This is behind a paywall, so we're not going to go out there and read this. But thescore.com has the latest on the Pittsburgh Penguins being interested in Shane Wright of the Seattle Kraken. The Penguins are intrigued by the idea of Shane Wright, sources have told The Athletic's Josh Yohei. Wright, the 2022 fourth overall pick, has reportedly been on the trade block since at least January. The Kraken were reportedly looking to use their center depth to land an impact winger before the trade deadline. It's unclear if that would still be their motive behind moving Wright, considering Seattle re-signed trade deadline pickup Bobby McMann and added Mackie Samoskevich this offseason. Wright is coming off of a tough season in which he only managed 12 goals and 27 points in 74 games. In 24-25, he set career highs of 19 goals and 44 points in 79 appearances. The 22-year-old, who was granted exceptional status into the OHL at 15, was widely expected to be picked first overall in 2022 before sliding on draft day. Ron Francis, who was Seattle's GM when the Kraken drafted Wright, now works in the Penguins front office as a senior advisor. Pittsburgh's center options behind Sidney Crosby include Evgeny Malkin, Tommy Novak, Ben Kindle, Blake Lizotte, and Hendrix Lapierre. Now that's a really interesting link here, and one that potentially shifts the tides of Shane Wright's inevitable trade towards the Pittsburgh Penguins. Who else can have a vote of confidence for Shane Wright than the guy who literally drafted him 4 years ago? Make no mistake, Wright was supposed to be a top pick in the 2022 draft. We all knew he was gonna go high. It's just the fact that he slipped from 1 to 4 was a pretty big deal, and one that a lot of draft fans will remember in the long years to come of Wright's career. He was supposed to be first overall, but he wasn't really that great in his draft-eligible campaign. Sure, he was fine, but it wasn't like world-breakingly good. And then he went fourth. Now, Shane Wright's career has been somewhat all over the place when you look at the varied point production. Okay, great, he's an AHL producer, that's awesome. He then had 44 points in 79 NHL games with the Kraken, that's even more awesome. But then, that dipped to 27 points in 74 games this most recent campaign. Wright is in sort of that tough territory where a lot of us are starting to wonder, hey, is there a continual upward path of progression that Wright is going to go through? Or is he forever doomed to just kind of hovering in that 40 to 50 point territory, and is he not going to be capable of breaking out and doing more than that? The Seattle Kraken were already thinking about trading this guy as far back as March of this year. They didn't get that done, and now we've got a bunch of conversations as to whether or not Wright could go over to Vancouver because the Canucks are supposedly very interested in getting this guy on their team. Now, with Pittsburgh in the mix as well, it makes things even more interesting. Again, my brain immediately defaulted to the idea of some sort of a 3-team trade between Pittsburgh, Vancouver, and Seattle, mostly because Wright is a guy that both the Canucks and the Penguins have targeted, and Elias Pettersson is a guy that the Penguins have targeted too. Kyle Dubas loves his reclamation projects, and make no mistake about it, Shane Wright fits the bill of a quote-unquote reclamation project as well. A guy that was supposed to be first overall, but he wasn't drafted first, and there was some adversity there, and then he had a bad season after a pretty good one. There are some ups and downs in Shane Wright's development for sure, and those are definitely the kinds of stories that Kyle Dubas gravitates towards. Same could be said about Elias Pettersson. But I do think that if the Vancouver Canucks are going to be willing to give up on Petey, either they would need to receive a whole bunch of futures or a whole bunch of guys who happen to also be kinda young. Shane Wright is kinda young. 22 is in that territory where, yeah, there is still a lot of time for him to continue to grow and develop, yada yada. There are some guys on the Vancouver Canucks that you can say are exiting that young-ish territory. I'd say Marco Rossi is one of those that is sort of not really young anymore, but, I mean, he's, 24 years old? Not super young, but still, he's got some experience. Elias Pettersson, on the other hand, he's 27. This guy ain't sticking around for the long haul, or at least it doesn't look like he will by the time the Vancouver Canucks are competitive again. And that's assuming the Canucks can even find some sort of a trade to go down for Elias Pettersson. Who really knows? For what it's worth, this Shane Wright, Seattle, Pittsburgh thing was also posted onto the r/Kraken subreddit, and I wanted to read some of the responses over here. First, you've got some immediate doubt. Josh Yohei is one of the bigger something-somethings in the industry of NHL team news coverage. There could be something to his Kraken Wright Penguins report, but take it with a grain of salt. The source is I'm also a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. It makes sense, though. Dubas loves to go after ex-first-round picks. Based on the article, it sounds like the Kraken's valuation of Wright doesn't match what Dubas is willing to pay, though. I'd imagine KD said something like, take your pick of Rickard, Rakell, or Rust, and we'll throw in a third, and the Kraken told him to jog on. That being said, the way the Kraken have messed up Wright's trajectory in minutes the past season, I don't think offers are going to get any better than that. Yeah, I mean, we already saw what Vancouver was asked to pay in the Shane Wright trade talks. Apparently, Patrick Allvin is trying to get his guys back in Kraken Town. Seattle was asking for Tom Wilander and Zeev Buium, and their elite prospect pages are not loading right now. Whatever in the heck is going on here? Wilander and Buium. These guys are way too good and way too important for the Vancouver Canucks to consider trading away in a deal for Shane Wright. If Shane Wright ends up becoming the 90-point guy that we thought he would be, then okay, fine. It would work, but the fact that he is so unknown at this point as to whether or not he's going to be able to reach that, there's the hang-up. Zeev Buium is already looking like a pretty special talent in Vancouver, after all. So, with all that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about this new report that the Pittsburgh Penguins are in on Shane Wright? And do you think this coincides, collides, or crosses over the trade talks linking Shane Wright to the Vancouver Canucks? Elias Pettersson is a Canuck. The Penguins want him too. So I feel like there are a number of ways that you could take this conversation, and you could try to formulate some sort of a three-way trade. I'm not smart enough to do that in this video. We'll try to brainstorm something later on if it does come out. But with all that said, I'll leave a link in the description to the Score article talking about the Penguins and Shane Wright. Do you think a 3-team trade with Vancouver is possible? Let me know in the comment section all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.